Obviously, there's many conversations regarding hip hop being dead or hip hop dying as a thing. You feel me? And the issue is, the reason why these types of conversations feel so off to many of us that hear someone start off saying that hip hop is dying or hip hop is dead, is that there's a difference between the music industry and hip hop culture as a whole. And for whatever reason, I ain't gonna say for whatever reason because it does make sense, people do misconstrue the two of them way too often, which is why we have a lot of unnecessary debates in our culture. The thing is, hip hop is some ground root shit. Hip hop started in the hoods, in the churches, in the ghettos. So because we've been naturally making music as part of our natural born culture for so long, at some point in time, it's like, because we live in the present day society that we live in, it's like, all right, we gotta monetize it, we gotta make some money off of this. You feel me? So then we started, then record labels started existing. You know, the first record label and like real media corporation that started was Columbia Broadcasting, which is CBS. You feel me? So once they started signing niggas under Columbia Records, we've been monetizing our culture ever since. The monetization of our culture is truly what we have an issue on. Not because it's necessarily getting monetized, but just because the simple fact that they are choosing to monetize what they are monetizing in high regard, opposed to things that are more akin to the natural culture of hip hop, okay? These days, someone can be really, really huge in the music industry but have very little cultural impact within hip hop as a whole. You feel me? That's the issue. That shouldn't really be a thing, but because we have a true business side of it that is separate from the culture, a lot of times they do, you know, go hand in hand and tie in with each other because the industry has to utilize the culture to see what's going on. You feel me? They have to pay attention to the culture to see what they want to make part of the actual mainstream industry. Okay? The thing is, people can completely change the culture of hip hop without even having a hit record. A hit record is only generated due to the music industry being in existence and whatever artist that they're working with being a part of the industry first or second. But for the most part, most of the people that are, you know, the most popular people within hip hop are music industry first and culture second, whether you believe it or not. Like I said, someone can have huge hip hop cultural impact and not have a hit record. Majority of the average Americans are not going to know that this person even exists, but the people that do know that this person is very, very important and this person is very impactful to our hip hop culture. You feel me? I gotta stop saying you feel me. I don't know why. It's like, it's a bad habit. I'm gonna get it together, y'all. Please excuse my background noise if you hear background noise, okay? The thing is, when we talk about the music industry or the hip hop music industry and hip hop culture, there's two different powers going on, okay? Completely two different powers going on. And I wish I could dive as deep as I want to with this, well, with that particular part of the conversation, but I will save that for another time. So when I say hip hop culture, I'm not just talking about rap music. You feel me? When you look at this particular painting right here, I love using this painting as an example because this is, I don't want to say this is life, but something akin to that, you could say. You feel me? This painting by Kalonji Productions is literally entitled Hip Hop Culture. Now, when you look at this, first thing that stands out is, okay, it's a whole bunch of rappers. You feel me? But you also have singers on here because you got to keep in mind the production is the core of the music. So if you have someone singing on what we considered a hip hop instrumental or hip hop beat or hip hop production, it's going to be classified as hip hop. And especially if they often work with or are seen with people that are rappers is going to be classified as hip hop. So you'll see Aaliyah on here, you'll see Mary J. Blige, because they were assigned to hip hop based labels and teams, and that's who they congregated with for the most part. They are considered hip hop due to the type of production of music that they sung on half the time. On another note, you have a depiction of graffiti on the wall. You also have a depiction of breakdancing. You even have a depiction of basketball. As you see nowadays, basketball is often tied into hip hop in a lot of ways. That's a conversation for another day. Of course, you also see a depiction of New York City, because they do give credit for New York City being the beginning of hip hop. Then of course that's debatable. I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I say hip hop started in Philadelphia, but that's a culture debate. That's not an industry debate. And the reason why, let me say this real quick. The reason why that's even a debate is literally because since the beginning of hip hop, people have misconstrued the industry with the culture. So because that culture of hip hop was prominent in Philadelphia, for example, not saying it wasn't prominent anywhere else, but it was very prominent here during the beginning stages, the late 70s, early 80s of hip hop. Because the industry of hip hop, the foundation of that is based in New York City, always has been, always will be, and currently still is, they're going to give the New Yorkers that credit, opposed to where the culture really stemmed from, which is Philadelphia. Even Leo Cohen recently mentioned in an interview or a podcast interview that he did with Meek Mill from Philadelphia that, the labels knew and know that if they got a rapper, they do a show out in Philly really appreciates rap. Let me tell you this, for example, if you're not from Philly, if you haven't been here, if you're not aware of the true hip hop culture or just the culture of the city, period, in this city. A couple years ago, I believe in 2023, I went to a Conway the Machine show. It was Conway and Sauce Walka on tour. Sauce Walka is from Houston, Texas, and Conway, of course, is from Buffalo, New York. With that being the case, Sauce Walka has music that's on some turn up party, twerk type music, and he also has a lot of introspective boom bap type music, and just your typical traditional rap and trap. He does everything. He's fire. I love Sauce Walka, right? He's one of my favorite. He in my top 20. You feel me? With that being the case, when he started performing his more party type music, not saying people wasn't fucking with it, but they wasn't showing that they were feeling it as much as they was feeling his other type of music, because we really like bars and we really like the lyricism and the sound of hip hop. That's our shit. That's literally our shit. Okay? So I'm going to meet Schoolie D next week. I'm going to ensure that I meet Schoolie D next week, which I believe is the grandfather of hip hop. He is the creator of this shit. You feel me? He helped this shit become industry, mainstream with the hip hop shit, even though he wasn't marketed as that when he came out, because he was overshined by LA and New York. That's another conversation. Just to give an example of the difference between the industry and the culture. Sauce Walka had addressed that during his performance. He was saying, he said something along the lines of dang, he acknowledged that niggas wasn't, vibing with the other type shit as much as they was vibing with the more lyrical storytelling shit that he had. You feel me? And that's just how we are. You feel me? Of course, there's a lot of people from the city that don't give a fuck about none of that. But if you there for Conway the Machine, if you on tour with him, we here for that. You feel me? Coming from Sauce Walka. I like that other shit that he do too. But even with me personally, I like him for other aspects of him more so. We have a big battle rap culture. Battle rap is, of course, very popular, but it's one of the core things that we have as our hip hop culture that's not really industry. You feel me? It's not really industry at all. People in the industry discuss and acknowledge the existence of battle rap, and there are, corporations that help fund battle rap. But at the end of the day, it's more culture than industry. Most people don't even realize that that's the thing. You feel me? Especially if you don't look like this. Even majority of people that look like me don't even know it's like a real continuous, consistent thing. You feel me? Because they're not tuned into the culture. They're not part of the culture. There's a big difference between the culture and the industry. The industry got y'all heads fucked up. For example, right? Let's use Doja Cat. Now, I personally consider Doja Cat to be a pop artist just as much as I consider Drake to be a pop artist. One of the main debates about Drake and Doja Cat is that they're more industry than culture. And they do culture related things within hip hop when it's convenient for them to do so. When they could get a good look out of it. When they can monetize the situation in some capacity. You feel me? That's the difference. I just want to highlight that to remind y'all, to remind us the difference. You feel me? Because there really is a motherfucking difference. And it needs to be acknowledged when we think about certain things within hip hop. Okay? It's going to make y'all feel better. Because a lot of people be getting a little too hot and bothered with people that they don't know. Okay? And I'm not saying I don't do that time to time. But let's have some more discernment. You feel me? Let's have discernment with what the fuck is really going on out here. Another thing on why people like confuse hip hop and the industry is because of the fact that it applies to the way we dress. It applies to our slang. It applies to some of our dances, our neighborhoods, the DJs that we utilize, the local scenes, the sense of community. Okay? People fail to realize, now I can't speak for other areas in the country. I'm sure it is like this in other areas. However, the East Coast, when it comes to hip hop, it's really our foundation, okay? In terms of our new age black culture. A lot of black culture is hip hop. And if it's not hip hop, whatever subculture that may be, they have to get locked in with hip hop. The East Coast, we have a strong culture of hip hop. Now, I don't want to even say the East Coast. I just want to say Philadelphia and New York City in particular. Obviously, it's other places too, but Philly, for example, I'll keep it a bean with you. We don't even really truly have the infrastructure, especially not compared to New York. You feel me? New York shits on everyone in terms of the fucking foundational infrastructure of the industry. And because the industry is based there, because New York City is so big, there's so many people over there, of course they utilize what they had at home, which was making New York the face of hip-hop and the face of rap, which is, you know, that's fine or whatever. Well, because of that, they have a huge hip-hop based culture. Very similar to Philadelphia. We just have it more so on a micro scale because we don't have the same infrastructure as they do over 2 hours away. The thing is, right, to give a perfect example, so Quilly Mills is a rapper from my city. From my hood. Not my hood, but my hood. You feel me? I'm from up top. I don't really like saying that. I like saying Germantown because I personally feel like if you're from Philly, you already feeling where I'm coming from. I personally feel like Germantown is Germantown. And Germantown to me is just between uptown and north. You feel me? However, Quilly reps up top. I feel like the part of uptown the part of Germantown that he's from is more so uptown-ish. You close to the Mount Airy. I was close to the nice town. You feel me? Where I grew up at. Well, I was really equal, but that's we're not here for me. Anyway, Quilly Mills, right? Once Diddy first got arrested and they would sentence him to jail or prison, wherever the fuck he at. People started saying, instead of saying pause, like if someone says something gay, you know, they're like, oh, I was eating a sausage and it tastes so good. Someone be like, pause. Instead of saying pause, they'd be like, no Diddy. Quilly Mills from Philly, from my hood, from Germantown, said no Diddy. And within a week's time, the whole country, or even the world that is, you know, familiar with this, is saying no Diddy. That's culture. That's not industry. I mean, industry helped push that. Industry helped make that go viral. But the culture, Quilly being of the culture, he not a mainstream artist by any means necessary. But the culture that he helped create, and Quilly is known for creating like new slang essentially. But the fact that that was able to go beyond the city and beyond the East Coast, that's a beautiful cultural impact that he had during that time frame. And even still today, because people still say no Diddy. You feel me? Culture. All from Philly. We gonna get our credit. We just got LeBron on the 76ers. We gonna get our credit soon. Trust and believe. Just always remember the business of hip-hop came after the culture of hip-hop. When we say the music industry, we talking about the record labels, the distribution companies, the streaming corporations, the publishers, the radio, even the managers, just the brands as a whole. Let me just say this. There's nothing inherently wrong with monetizing music for business purposes at all. I have no problem with capitalism at all. I'm not one of them. That is the foundation of society, is capitalism. Greed is where the issue comes into play. Everyone deserves to make money. We all alive, and because money has been created as something for us to need to get by and to do more than just get by, everyone needs money. Ain't nothing wrong with that. The artist gotta eat, the label gotta eat, the manager gotta eat, the engineer gotta eat, the producer gotta eat. Everybody gotta eat. The main issue comes into play when someone's trying to measure cultural importance through commercial success. And that's personally why I made the previous videos I made about Drake. And I have the thoughts that I have about Drake, because Drake to me is more so a culture vulture than being of the culture. Of course, he influenced the culture a lot, to say the least. However, at the end of the day, he is way more industry. We gotta keep in mind his foundation. His foundation was not, I'm from the stereotypical hip-hop situation, if that makes sense. You get what I mean, right? I'm from where I'm from in Toronto, assuming to be an upper middle class type of lifestyle, and you were a child actor. You were on TV, on a hit TV show that teens across the world watched. You are a commercial. Then you instantly got signed to the biggest artist, the biggest rap artist of our time at that time. And even now, Lil Wayne. You feel me? Most niggas gotta go through this label, this backing, this situation, and then they get the Lil Wayne backing. Not everybody, but often enough. So it's just like, he's just always been more industry, which is why people debate Drake and people judge people that say that Drake is their favorite rapper, because he bites off the culture opposed to just being of the culture. And it's very clear to see what he got going on with it. People too often confuse success with the influence of people. People have millions of streams. It's so often when certain rappers will get platinum records, and I'm like, I never even heard that song before. How they get that? Even if I ain't listened to it on my own, it was never put in my ear. It was never put in my face enough for me to actually hear the song. So how the fuck they get a platinum record? You feel me? That's the industry. That person may be of the culture, but that song wasn't marketed for the culture. The culture never got like a chance to even know that that song exists. You feel me? At all. But people assume, oh, they have this number of streams, they must be controlling the culture. And it's like, no, they not at all. Like, they really don't be. It has no impact. The culture don't even really know about it. Culture ain't even fucking with it. Culture don't even fuck with this artist. You feel me how they do that? It'd be interesting how they do that. But that's why it's such a blur between the culture and the industry. Most times, the people that influence the industry from the culture never get their credit. The people that have the most impact from the culture never get their credit from the industry. So if they don't get their credit from the industry, the public most times don't know, unless they're in that niche hip-hop world. Because being, like, paying attention to hip-hop these days in 2026 is very niche from paying attention to hip-hop in 1996. 1996, it was still a niche thing because you had to pay attention. You had to physically go to your concerts, go to, you know, the club when the artist's going to be there. You had to buy the CDs. That's the only way you go hear it, or y'all all congregating together to watch that same performance on the TV, or the music video on the TV, premiering on the TV. It was a united front. And then the clothes, like fashion industry, started marketing to us a little more around a wave of hip-hop being like a thing, which to me was the 90s, because you got to keep in mind, it started the late 1970s, so 77, 78, 79, all that shit is the foundation of hip-hop. And then we had the 80s. A lot of people don't listen to 80s rap music like that, but when they do go back and listen to music, they're going to the 90s. Now I ain't gonna say everybody, because obviously it's people that's way older than me that are gonna go back and listen to the rap music from the 80s, like it came out yesterday. But most people, if they're going to go back far, they're just going to go to the 90s. And to me, that's the prime era of hip-hop, and a lot of our music still has that same energy, that same feeling from that time period. So back to my main point, when people say hip-hop is dead or they feel like it's dying, they really just talk about the music industry. They're not talking about the culture of hip-hop, because the culture of hip-hop is live and well and thriving, okay? If you know, you know. You just don't like what you're seeing from the mainstream. That's literally all it boils down to. If you just burnt out of seeing, I don't know, Rod Wave and Sexy Red and Quavo and Travis Scott and Drake, and I don't even know, like, I don't even pay attention to Billboard. I used to a lot when I was a teenager, but I don't do that anymore. I don't care about the numbers. It really doesn't reflect what I like, because most of the people I like are never going to be on Billboard, at least 90 times soon. So, and that's fine with me, that's fine with them. That's not something to reach to. We don't care too much these days about becoming part of the industry. You feel me? We want to be of hip-hop culture and to monetize it, to make money from it. So yeah, you're part of the industry in that regard, but are you really part of the industry? Like, it's different sectors. It's a lot of, everything is really broken up. So even how the subgenres are broken up, the people within the industry that pay attention to whatever subgenres they pay attention to, they're mentally and attention-wise broken up as well. So the person most times that's real into boom bap is not listening to cybercore or digicore rap music, or just a real weird alternative rap music. They're not about to be listening to that, and vice versa. The real hypercore, the person that loves JPEG Mafia and they listen to JPEG Mafia all day, 9 times out of 10 it's not about to be listening to Conway the Machine all day. Most people not about to listen to both back to back. Now me personally, I would. You feel me? I don't listen to JPEG Mafia, but I might listen to something akin to something he might do, and I could listen to a boom bap song back to back. But that's me. I'm a little different. I understand it though. So yeah. I gotta wrap this video up. This video is very long. The thing is, most of the major cities in our country have circuits and scenes of underground hip-hop going on that everyone regionally that pays attention to hip-hop sees and likes and pays attention to, and they love that shit. But when it comes to it becoming part of the industry, which means it becoming mainstream, so that you in Milwaukee, Wisconsin knows about 10 different Philadelphia rappers releases, that's hard to come by, because they're not of the industry. The industry has to make it a thing, has to make our Philadelphia rap music culture a thing for you 100 miles away to understand that this is happening. You feel me? That's why you can't respect people that only care about first week numbers. That's cool and all, but I don't give a fuck what this nigga made. Am I making a piece of this shit too? No. So like, what we doing? Then of course, social media is the main thing that helped create this confusion. I feel like when we had, before the blog era, when we just strictly had magazines to see articles of hip hop, who's the new mainstream rapper, or who's the up and coming rapper, to the point where he got in the magazine, people understood the difference, because at that time period we had websites like Dat Piff, or even before the websites, you had LimeWire. the software. And even before that, we actually had the physical CD. Before that, the physical tape. All of those things were still going on. We still had a lot of battle rappers. Niggas just rapping on camera with no records. Nothing on any type of streaming platform. Nothing that you can even go and download. I ain't gonna say that you could download shit on LimeWire. But nothing that you could go on DatPiff to listen to. You would still be listening to this nigga that's from your hood just as much as you would listen to some nigga from Memphis on DatPiff. It's not like that in that same type of capacity because everything is digital. So the social media confused niggas once again. And you know the origin of confusion, where that come from, right? If you don't know, think about it, look it up. Unfortunately, the artist gets stuck in the middle of the industry and the culture most times. Because most times the artist does, you know, go both ways. Not everybody, but the majority of hip-hop artists do go both ways in terms of the industry and being a part of the culture. The issue with them comes into play is their money. They want to do what they love. They want to express themselves to us in this capacity, and they want to get paid for it properly. And they're not getting paid for it because there's an imbalance between the culture and the industry. And because there's so many people, it's almost just as many rappers as there are cashiers. That's the issue. It's not the industry for that, but we are allowing it to be for other people to eat. And again, the artist is the pawn in a lot of ways, oftentimes unfortunate. And just to wrap this up, I just want y'all to think, instead of asking all the time like what's going on in the industry, we should just spend a little more time asking what's going on in the culture. If you don't know, my name is Sana. If you don't know, now you know. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you think in terms of the difference between the culture and the industry. If you agree with me, if you don't agree with me, if you have another opinion, please let me know. Let's discuss. Bye. Thanks for watching.